The Second World War was a conflict of terrifying statistics, a brutal carnival of industrialized death. It was a war of tanks measured in tons, artillery shells counted in millions, and bombers that darkened the sky with sheer numbers. To the seasoned German Lanzer, the greatest threat was the predictable, overwhelming wave, the Patton tank pushing through a line, the screaming mass of a 1,000-plane raid, the inexorable grinding of the Soviet war machine. These were threats one could see, against which one could plan, and for which one could prepare a defense. Yet across the globe, in the most vicious theaters of war, a different kind of terror was emerging, one that transcended the sheer force of numbers, striking instead at the fragile core of a soldier's morale. It is a psychological truth, often forgotten in the grand histories of armored pushes and strategic bombing, that the most demoralizing weapon is the one you cannot see, the one that kills with precision, and the one that targets not the machine, but the man controlling it. This truth was felt most acutely by the Imperial Japanese Army in the dense jungles of the Pacific. It was there, amidst the oppressive heat and the tangled green, that the Gojumanintai, the Japanese frontline troops, developed a profound, almost superstitious dread of a particular American opponent. Their operational reports and captured diaries spoke not of fear of the Sherman tank, nor the B-29 Superfortress, but of a quiet, methodical, and chillingly efficient killer, the American sniper team. Why? Because the sniper team, often a pair of men and a rifle, stripped away the shield of industrial warfare. It negated the value of the platoon, the company, or even the regiment. One round, fired from an unknown distance, and an officer, a radio man, or a medic, was instantly and silently removed. The war became personal again, and the Lancer, the Gojumanintai, or any frontline soldier was reduced to a single exposed target. This profound psychological advantage, mastered in the Pacific, was about to be unleashed with devastating effect on the established battlefields of Europe. The German Wehrmacht, masters of the Blitzkrieg, the rapid industrial shock and awe of modern mechanized warfare, were about to be undone, not by an enemy of superior numbers, but by an ancient concept, the single, perfectly placed projectile, delivered with modern American precision and manufacturing scale. They had perfected the art of large-scale killing. The Americans perfected the art of precise, psychological demoralization. In the summer of 1944, as the Allied armies fought their way out of the Normandy beachheads, they ran headlong into the bocage, a network of sunken roads, thick earthen banks, and ancient, impenetrable hedgerows. This was not the open, tank-friendly terrain of the Russian steppe. It was a claustrophobic, three-dimensional maze. Every hedgerow or talus was a natural 2-meter-high fortress. Every small field was a killing zone. The fighting became a desperate, close-quarters slugfest. Tanks were blinded. Infantry platoons were cut to ribbons. And it was here, in this suffocating geography, that the American sniper team, using lessons learned in the jungles and honed in the desert, would become the ultimate, non-negotiable tactical reality for the German defense. Initially, German contempt for the American soldier was palpable. Their intelligence reports, dating back to North Africa and Sicily, often dismissed the Yank as soft, over-reliant on supply, and lacking in the disciplined ferocity of the Ostfront veteran. They mocked American weaponry, the seemingly endless stream of Garands, the mass-produced M4 Sherman. "They fight with volume, not skill," was a common refrain in officer briefings. What they failed to grasp was the nature of the American approach to warfare. Systematic efficiency. The Americans didn't need every man to be a hardened veteran. They needed every man to be adequately equipped and supported, and they needed a small, elite fraction to break the enemy's will. The rifle-carrying American sniper was that fraction. Imagine the sensory reality of the bocage, the clatter of the MG-42 firing at a blistering 1,200 rounds per minute, dominating the sonic landscape. The smell of high explosives and churned earth. But amid the chaos there was always a void, the silence of the sniper. A single sharp crack, unlike the rhythmic staccato of machine guns, and a section commander drops. The machine gunner, suddenly exposed and terrified, realizes the roar of his weapon makes him the center of attention. Every movement, every decision-maker, every moment of hesitation was being watched by an unseen eye. This was not a war of averages. It was a war of single-digit elimination. The true power of the American sniper team lay not just in the man behind the scope, but in the confluence of American ingenuity and industrial capacity that forged the tool of their trade, the rifle. The famous German sniper, often a lone wolf with a modified Mauser, was an exceptional soldier relying on personal skill. The American sniper was a product of an industrial system designed for standardized, repeatable excellence. The difference was not merely tactical, it was philosophical. In the following act, we will delve into the precision engineering and brutal training that transformed a young man from the American heartland into the silent, terrifying arbiter of life and death, armed with the technological masterpiece that was the Springfield M1903A4. We will uncover how the marriage of optics, ballistics, and discipline turned a despised supporting role into the Wehrmacht's most potent psychological and strategic crisis. This is the Silent War, a theater of calculated violence played out in the mind as much as on the battlefield. The full story of the sniper's reign of terror is a testament to the power of precision. If you find yourself compelled by the deep dives into history's most critical turning points and the secrets of military strategy, take a moment to subscribe. Ensure you don't miss the next chapter of this unfolding story. The terror of the sniper in the European theater was fundamentally a story of two competing philosophies of war: the German dedication to a singular, superior warrior, and the American commitment to a systematic, mass-producible, and technically superior system. When the Germans spoke of their own marksmen, they spoke of legends: SS Oberscharführer Sepp Allerberger, Oberleutnant Bruno Sutkus, men who achieved impossible kill counts with a personal, almost artisanal touch, often with highly modified K98K rifles. The American approach, however, was colder, more scientific, and built to scale. The backbone of the American sniper's effectiveness was the rifle itself, the Springfield M1903A4. It was an adaptation of the venerable 1903 service rifle, a bolt-action platform with a storied history. While the standard American infantryman carried the semi-automatic M1 Garand, a weapon that provided devastating volume of fire, the sniper's M1903A4 was the embodiment of deliberate precision. The transition back to a bolt-action rifle for the sniper role was a conscious decision rooted in ballistics. The controlled action ensured greater consistency and minimized variables, optimizing the single-shot accuracy essential for extreme range. The M1903A4 was not an off-the-shelf weapon. It was meticulously factory-modified. The iron sights were deliberately removed, forcing the sniper's full reliance on the scope. The most common and famous optic utilized was the Weaver 330C, later standardized as the M73B1, or for the Marines and some Army units, the far superior Unertl 8X scope. The Unertl, in particular, was a telescopic sight of astounding quality for its time, featuring an 8-power magnification that allowed a trained operator to clearly define targets, even through light cover, at ranges exceeding 600 yards. This optical superiority was a game-changer. The German standard-issue scopes, like the ZF41, were often low-power, 1.5x, and mounted awkwardly, intended more for designated marksmen than dedicated snipers. The Unertl, a massive piece of brass and glass, offered a window into the enemy's soul. The cartridge utilized was the 30-06 M2 ball ammunition, firing a 150-grain bullet. What mattered was not just the caliber, but the batch consistency. The U.S. Ordnance Department initiated a rigorous program to select the most uniform ammunition lots, sometimes referred to as national match quality, for sniper use. A German sniper could be a phenomenal shot, but his ammunition could vary wildly, leading to unpredictable flight paths. The American system ensured that every round fired from the M1903A4 behaved with near-identical muzzle velocity, approx 2,800 feet per second, and ballistic trajectory. This meant a sniper could trust his dope, his data on previous engagements. This precision was mass-produced. The men selected for the role were equally systemic. Unlike other nations that might pull a good hunter from a line company, the Americans established specialized sniper schools at training centers like Camp Perry, and later in combat zones. The training was less about marksmanship, though that was mandatory, and more about the art of fieldcraft. A quote attributed to Sergeant Major Jake Hellinger, a Marine sniper instructor, perfectly encapsulates the mindset. Anybody can hit a bullseye at 200 yards. We want the men who can live for 72 hours in a swamp, eating what they carry, and place a shot through a chimney flue at 600 yards after crawling 3 miles. The training regimen was brutal. It focused on range estimation, the critical skill of determining distance without a laser rangefinder, and stalking. The sniper stalk was the ultimate test, where a student had to crawl hundreds of yards past a line of instructors armed with binoculars, place a single shot on a hidden silhouette target, and extract without being detected. Failure meant starting over. This process didn't just teach camouflage, it instilled the patience, the mental fortitude, and the psychological detachment necessary to become an effective, cold-blooded killer. The soldier entered the school as an infantryman. He left as a tactical ghost. The Germans initially struggled to counter this threat. Their standard tactical doctrine was ill-suited to the patient, methodical nature of the American sniper. When a sniper opened fire, the German response was often blind retaliation, pouring machine gun and mortar fire into the suspected area. This tactic, while cathartic, played directly into the sniper's hands. Obergefreiter Willi Hauser, a veteran of the 17th SS Panzergrenadier Division, recalled his experiences in the Bocage in a post-war interview. It was not the sound of the rifle that was terrifying. It was the lack of sound after the first shot. The first American shot was like a bell. It meant an officer was dead, but the man was still there, waiting. We learned quickly that the radio man, the man with the binoculars, or the officer checking a map, they were the first targets. It was calculated. It wasn't random. It made you want to hide your rank, to walk like a simple rifleman, to stop thinking like a leader. It destroyed command. This quote reveals the thesis of the psychological war. The sniper's goal was not to kill the maximum number of men, but to achieve maximum disruption and demoralization. By focusing on high-value targets, the link men of the chain of command, a single 2-man sniper team could immobilize a company. A dead rifleman is a loss of 1 gun. A dead platoon leader is the loss of direction for 50 men. The psychological terror and tactical precision of the American sniper teams were about to be tested in the most unforgiving landscape of the Western Front, the labyrinthine killing fields of the Norman Bocage. Here, where visibility was often limited to a few yards and the enemy could literally be underfoot, the geometry of death would become complex, forcing both sides to adapt their tactics or face annihilation. The time for dismissing the American sniper as a mere nuisance was over. The Wehrmacht was about to learn the true cost of precision, 1 fatal shot at a time. The battle for Normandy was a 4-week crawl through a geographic nightmare. The Bocage country was tailor-made for defensive warfare, transforming every small patch of land into a fortress. The German defenders, hidden in the thick undergrowth and reinforced hedgerows, could halt Allied armored divisions with relative ease. But the Bocage was also a landscape of shadows, claustrophobic and silent, and in this environment, the American sniper team found its perfect hunting ground. The very nature of the terrain amplified their lethal effectiveness. The Allied offensive quickly devolved into a fight where the sound of the 30-06 crack, often followed by a sickening thud, became a horrifying constant. The 2-man team, the shooter and the spotter, operated as a single, symbiotic organism. The spotter was the more critical role, armed with powerful M1943 binoculars, often the 6x30 or 7x50 models, and a meticulous attention to detail. His task was not just to find the target, but to understand the enemy's pattern, where the German sentries changed over, which route the command courier took, and most importantly, where the enemy's heavy weapons, the mortars or the dreaded MG42 nests, were positioned. The spotter was the brains, the shooter was the executioner. Private First Class Robert Bullet Kelly, a spotter with the 4th Infantry Division, once described the feeling of lying motionless for hours, buried beneath a tangle of roots and camouflage netting. It was the stillness that wore you down. You are watching a German machine gunner smoke a cigarette not 40 yards away. You can smell the smoke, but you can't move, can't breathe. Your entire world is in the 2 inches behind the eyepiece. And then the order comes. The click of the bolt, the quiet whisper of the shot, and the world goes back to quiet. Except now the gunner is slumped, and his friends are yelling. They yell because they don't know where it came from. That confusion, that was our real weapon. The terror was not limited to the infantry. German tank commanders, who normally enjoyed a measure of immunity, found themselves dangerously exposed. A tank officer, standing in the turret hatch to gain better situational awareness, the most critical act of command in a fluid battle, was the perfect target. A single, well-placed shot could instantly remove the commander, forcing the tank to button up, robbing it of its eyes, and turning the multi-ton machine into a blind, vulnerable steel box. The sniper's efficiency in targeting commanders was so high that German protocols were soon amended. Tank commanders were instructed to keep their exposure time to an absolute minimum, a change that significantly hampered the Panzer unit's ability to react swiftly to changing threats. The German army, masters of tactical adaptation, began to develop countermeasures, revealing the gravity of the threat. They deployed their own snipers more aggressively. They adopted the tactic of baiting, sending a low-value target into the open to draw a shot, hoping to give away the sniper's position. They used the Krumlauf, an experimental curved barrel attachment for the STG-44 assault rifle, designed to fire around corners and edges, allowing them to engage exposed positions without direct exposure. But the most effective countermeasure was psychological, to instill in their own men the discipline to ignore the target's death. Hauptmann Klaus Richter, a company commander in the 2nd Panzer Division, detailed the unbearable strain in a captured letter to his wife. The Yanks do not fight like normal men. They use their rifle like a surgeon uses a scalpel. You watch a man fall, and the natural instinct is to rush to him. But we cannot. My orders are strict. If a man is hit, the others must hold their position, or the second round will take the man who tries to help. We are forced to abandon our wounded. It is not our way. It feels dishonorable. It is the greatest weight on our conscience, that we must let them bleed rather than expose ourselves to the invisible shadow. This is the ultimate expression of psychological terror, forcing the enemy to choose between their own survival and the ancient military code of never leaving a comrade. The American sniper's success was measured not in the number of men killed, but in the number of men immobilized by fear. The sniper also forced a technological counter-revolution on the American side. As German defenses stiffened, the infantry needed to breach the hedgerows faster, minimizing the time they were exposed to enemy observation. This urgency, born from the slow attrition of the bocage, led to the hurried field-expedient invention of the Rhino tank, a Sherman tank fitted with steel tusks welded to the front, designed to cut through the base of the hedgerow. This brutal, crude modification, driven in part by the static and deadly conditions created by snipers and machine guns, fundamentally changed the pace of the breakout. The American sniper had achieved a tactical paradox. A low-tech, one-man weapon system was paralyzing the high-tech, industrialized German defense. The cost in blood was mounting, and the German High Command was beginning to realize that the silent, unseen foe was not a random nuisance, but a strategic problem. As the Allies prepared for Operation Cobra, the massive breakout from the bocage, the snipers would be deployed with surgical precision, becoming the silent, lethal vanguard of the armored thrust, and forever changing the face of warfare. As the summer of 1944 reached its climax, the conflict transitioned from the slugfest of the hedgerows to the sweeping maneuver warfare that characterized the final drive across France. Yet even in the open fields, the foundational terror instilled by the American sniper teams remained. The effectiveness of these marksmen, once considered a negligible asset, was now being quantified by Allied analysts, and the numbers were staggering. The statistical impact of the sniper was disproportionate to their numbers. While the U.S. Army fielded millions of men, the number of truly effective snipers, those with dedicated training and equipment, was never more than a few thousand. Yet analysis showed that the rate of incapacitation for officers and non-commissioned officers, NCOs, was significantly higher in areas of high sniper deployment. A study by the U.S. Army Ordnance Department later indicated that, on average, a single sniper round claimed one German life, as opposed to the tens of thousands of rifle and machine gun rounds necessary to inflict one casualty during general engagement. This wasn't just efficiency, It was an industrial marvel of death. While the German war machine relied on the mass production of its V-weapons and a staggering output of the efficient MG-42, the American industrial edge was often subtler. It was the ability to manufacture not just a volume of rifles, but a volume of precision instruments. The sheer quantity of standardized optically superior rifles and the consistent quality of match-grade ammunition meant the Americans could deploy the concept of tactical precision at a scale the Axis simply could not match. The American system didn't just create individual snipers, it created a lethal, repeatable system of precision warfare. The climax of the sniper's strategic influence came with the execution of Operation Cobra in late July 1944. This was the massive breakout, leveraging a devastating carpet bombing raid to punch a hole in the German lines. The armored divisions, the Shermans and the Hellcats were the spearhead. But before the tanks could roll, the advance had to be secured, and the forward observation posts had to be silenced. This task fell to the forward reconnaissance and sniper teams, working in the eerie, churned-up landscape left by the bombing. Their mission: to move into the broken German rear, locate and eliminate the few remaining anti-tank gun crews, artillery spotters, and, most critically, the counter-snipers trying to re-establish a defensive perimeter. The sniper teams were the silent vanguard, clearing the eyes and ears of the German defense just ahead of the armored charge. Sergeant Frank Tex Crawford, a decorated sniper operating with the 2nd Infantry Division, described the intense pressure of this moment. The bombing had stopped, and the ground was shaking from the engines coming up behind us. Our job was simple. If a German could see a tank coming, he had to go. We were hunting tank killers. I remember a Panzerschreck team, dug in on a ridge waiting for the Shermans to crest. The spotter gives me the range, 750 yards, maybe 8. The wind's tricky. You don't have time for a second shot. You have to wait for the gunner to move to expose his chest just enough. It's an impossible shot, but the tank is coming. You breathe out, you squeeze, and then the explosion of the shell, but not from the Panzerschreck. It's the sound of the anti-tank weapon being abandoned. A fraction of a second, a piece of lead, and the entire German defense for that ridge falls apart. The tanks roll right through. We were just 2 guys with old rifles, but for that moment, we were the point of the spear. This perfectly encapsulates the central irony of the conflict. The tank, the ultimate symbol of modern industrial power, was utterly dependent on the single, quiet, low-velocity bullet of the marksman to survive its most immediate threat. The sniper, seemingly an anomaly in an industrialized war, was the key to unlocking mechanized maneuver. The psychological effect on the remaining German troops was total. The swift, silent removal of all leadership turned tactical retreat into rout. The soldiers, no longer trusting the traditional hierarchy, began to break formation. Morale plummeted. They were no longer fighting a coherent enemy army, they were fighting ghosts who targeted their leaders with chilling accuracy. The German command structure, famously disciplined and rigid, began to disintegrate under the pressure of pervasive unseen threat. By the time the Allied armies were sweeping through France, the fear of the American sniper was institutionalized in the Wehrmacht. It wasn't just a concern, it was a tactical assumption that had to be factored into every deployment, every movement, and every command decision. The question was no longer if a sniper was watching, but where and when he would fire. The sniper had transitioned from a peripheral nuisance to a defining strategic force. The legacy of this shift, the emphasis on precision, high-value targeting, and psychological manipulation, would forever change the face of modern warfare. The end of the war brought a reckoning, not just of battles won and lost, but of tactical evolutions and psychological scars. The American sniper teams, quiet participants in the grand, sweeping narrative of the Western Front, left behind a legacy disproportionate to their modest numbers. The answer to the central question, why the Axis so feared fighting these units, lay not in the body count, but in the total systemic and psychological defeat they inflicted. The sniper team had mastered the art of cognitive disruption. They did not need to kill every soldier. They only needed to convince every soldier that they were the target and that their leaders were inevitably doomed. For the seasoned German veteran who had faced everything from the massed artillery of the Ostfront to the relentless bombing of the Reich, The silent surgical precision of the American marksman represented the ultimate betrayal of industrial warfare. It was a return to the primitive, personalized fear of the single predator, armed with the most refined tools of the American arsenal. Major Hans Gruber, a German operations officer captured during the Battle of the Bulge, summarized the feeling with a chilling clarity. "We could fight the tanks, we could fight the bombers. But the man with the rifle, the one we never saw, he did not fight our armies. He fought our will. He taught us that bravery was meaningless when every decision, every order was instantly rewarded with a bullet." The psychological attrition was the ultimate weapon of the American precision soldier. The lessons learned by the American army in Normandy and beyond cemented the role of the precision marksman in the modern military. The emphasis shifted permanently from massed infantry volleys to targeted, high-value elimination. The tools and tactics developed during Wetterpunkt, the two-man team, the emphasis on camouflage and fieldcraft over mere marksmanship, and the systematic selection of dedicated long-range optics became the template for every sniper program that followed, from the Korean and Vietnam Wars to the counterinsurgency operations of the 21st century. The M1903A4 eventually gave way to the M1C and M1D Garands, and later to the M40 and M24 systems, but the core philosophy, precision targeting for maximum strategic effect, remained unchanged. The industrial reality of American warfare, therefore, was not just about the output of tanks and planes. It was about the ability to marry the scientific rigor of ballistic precision with a systematic approach to training a new breed of soldier. They took the ancient idea of the hunter and gave him a modern, high-quality instrument, turning him into a strategic asset. The sniper, once a novelty, became an indispensable force multiplier. The story of the American sniper teams in Europe is a profound historical irony. In a war defined by the brutal scale of the machine, the roar of the engine, the shriek of the bomb, victory was often secured by the quietest force on the field, the man who could wait for hours, who could read the wind, and who could end a battle with a single meticulously placed round. The industrial might of America did not just bury the Axis in steel, it armed a few select men with the ability to destroy the enemy's nerve, one fatal shot at a time. The Japanese learned it in the jungle, the German Lanzer learned it in the hedgerows. It was a lesson written in silence and paid for in the deepest, most personal fear. The shadow of the sniper, the ghost in the crosshairs, remains the ultimate testament to the terrifying effectiveness of calculated precision over sheer brute force. And that, in the end, is why they were feared more than any other unit. We have uncovered the quiet, lethal truth of the Second World War's psychological battlefield. The stories of these unseen forces and the tectonic shifts of military technology are endless. If you wish to continue exploring the hidden depths and dark ironies of history, join our community. Subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell to ensure you never miss an installment of the most compelling, detailed, and historically accurate military documentaries.